My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. In 1987, the group U2 released their album The Joshua Tree with the Grammy Award Winning Song of the Year, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. How many spiritual seekers echo this refrain as they search for a path of awakening and understanding? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Nina Verkoeyen, was an incredibly successful spiritual teacher in Eastern Europe, on the cover of Yoga Journal twice, and in demand with growing influence. But that was on the outside. On the inside, she was bereft. Something was missing, and she was desperately searching for it everywhere. She had practiced and taught all spiritual practices known to man, or almost, but nothing was it. Until one evening, as she contemplated what love is and asked this question of the universe, something profound happened. She became one with the Creator and experienced everything and herself as love. She received the answer of what love is. She became the answer. This led to the foundation of meta-spirituality. Her website is meta-spirituality.org, and she joins me this week to share this path. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Nina Verkoeyen. Welcome, Nina.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
And so wonderful for you to join us and share your story. So please share with us your early path and how your spiritual understanding unfolded.
You know, it's actually a very long story because I have been on a spiritual path consciously, I would say, from the age of 11. This is the moment when I started being interested in meditation and all sorts of spiritual things. And since then, I have just been trying, testing, studying various spiritual teachings and traditions for decades. But I always felt that something is missing. I got to a point where I started to feel disappointed in myself and my spiritual practices because despite my inner work, I still felt anxiety, I still felt dissatisfaction in my personal relationships, I still had financial struggles. So I spent and dedicated all my life to spiritual practices, and my assumption was that it will change my life, it will change my outer reality, but it actually didn't. And after a couple of decades of all these spiritual practices, I got so disappointed in myself and my spiritual path, I just quit. And at that point, I was already teaching meditation, awareness, yoga. I quit teaching, I quit searching, and I just retreated to an island for 2 years. I stopped practicing yoga, I stopped meditating. I got to this point of, okay, nothing is working for me. It's either me who's incapable of implementing spiritual wisdom into my daily reality, or something's wrong with the practices. Like, I don't know what is not working, but it's just, I always had a feeling that something's missing.
You know, my dear late friend, Debbie Ford, wrote a book called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And she was talking about the shadow within us, that no matter what we seek and find, we're never satisfied.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people told me that this is how the ego mind works. You will never find this satisfaction that you're looking for. But you know what's interesting? When I stopped searching, when I kind of gave up inside me, and I became disappointed in all the external practices, things, methods, rituals, visualizations, affirmations, I realized they don't actually work. I mean, they work partially. They give us an illusion of, some changes within. But if you don't see radical changes on the outside, then why do we practice, right? So the whole point, in my opinion, of a spiritual path practice and a whole self-development idea is that we will be able to make the world better, make our life better, make our relationship less, difficult, with less conflict. But back to the story. I became disappointed in all of this, and I quit teaching. I retreated to this island for 2 years to live an ordinary life of a non-seeker, so to speak. However, my inner desire to know the truth, my desire to find the missing piece, continued to grow despite my decreasing belief in spiritual practices. And one evening in March 2016, out of the blue, absolutely spontaneous, I didn't take any substances, I didn't meditate, I didn't do any spiritual practice. I simply asked myself the question, what is love? And I posed this question within myself with such, I think at that point, like desperation, like what is life? What is love? What is the truth? And I received the answer. I received it not in words, but in a state of being, because I was suddenly transported into a state of unity with God, with the universe, with everyone. And I realized my true identity. I realized what love is. I realized what I am. And this is one and the same. This experience changed everything. It just opened my eyes to a new way of seeing everything. It absolutely stopped my inner urge to seek. I felt that I came to where I was going. And it's been almost 7 years. This feeling never went away. So I can, from my personal experience, affirm that there is an end to this spiritual search. It's not just our ego that is always unsatisfied, but until we actually come to know the truth within us, we will feel unhappy, and we will be striving to find that connection to our true self.
So you found that connection. I remember the group U2 Bono singing, "I still haven't found what I'm looking for," but you found it. But you found it. What was the sense like when you found it?
It was a feeling of being a different being. It was a shift in identity, in self-perception. I didn't feel like a separate human being anymore. I felt that I am God, regardless of how it sounds. I felt that I am God, but it doesn't mean that somebody else is not. I felt that this is what we are collectively, that we have one soul, for lack of a better word, that is inhibiting all the billions of bodies that exist on Earth. And this is who we truly are. We are the creator. The creator is just using our bodies to express itself, to experience. And this is what I felt. And this was also the understanding what love is, because love, God, the creator, these are just synonyms.
And did it feel like you were home?
Yes, it felt like I reached where I was going to, what I was looking for all my life. Yeah.
That awakening was the foundational moment of meta-spirituality. What process did it start within you, and how did it unfold?
So when I was transported into that state of unity with everything and with myself, it didn't last for a minute. It lasted for almost a week, gradually bringing me back into my mind, into my body. So with each day, I would feel a little bit less of that and more of who I was before, but it didn't disappear. So it wasn't a momentarily like a flash, that just was gone the next moment. So during that week, I was writing down all the epiphanies and realizations that became visible to me, like known to me, when I was able to see the world and myself and everybody else through the new eyes of this new identity, through the eyes of non-separateness, through the eyes of unity and love and God, whatever we call it. I didn't have questions. I had clarity and all the answers contained within me. Like whatever I turn my gaze towards, I would kind of see the truth of it. And yeah, I was writing down all of it during that week. I wrote down all the realizations about different aspects of life, about relationships, about money, about every aspect of life, basically. And that later became the foundation, or turned into the lectures that I called The Last Truth. This is the main course of lectures in meta spirituality, like the landmark work for meta spirituality. And it became the meta spirituality teaching in general. Yeah.
Are these realizations something that we actually knew as children but forgot?
I don't think that we knew that while we were children, but I think this is something that is within every single human being, and this is our mission, our true purpose. The true purpose of every human being is to remember who we truly are. I don't think that kids necessarily remember that. Actually, I don't think that's the case. But at some point of our life, it doesn't matter how old we are. Somebody can remember that when they're 10, somebody can remember when they're 90. It doesn't matter how old we are, but this truth, it lives within us and it's available. The only thing that's missing is our conscious choice and pure need to know the truth, to remember that.
Please explain what meta-spirituality is and the relationship between meta-spirituality and other spiritual teachings.
The difference between meta-spirituality and other spiritual teachings is the same as the difference between half-truths and the truth. Because meta-spirituality is the spiritual tradition that aims to change your identity rather than to give spiritual tools and practices to your old identity in the hope that it will change your reality for the better. Without the knowledge of who you are and how to express it in your daily life, any spiritual teaching will only provide incomplete guidance, like a temporary relief or a small shift in one's perspective. But in contrast, meta-spirituality provides like a comprehensive understanding of the nature of reality and of who you are, and it aims to shift one's identity. This is the main difference, because we need to change the self-perception and perceive ourselves as the creator, as God, because the way we perceive anything is the way we create it. We are the creators, whether we know it or not. We are the creator itself. And it means that the way we perceive anything is the way we create it. It's like the one who observes is the observable too. Like there is no separation between the two. And this is the main law of meta-spirituality. The way we perceive anything is the way we, as the creator, created. So when we make an inner choice to know ourselves as God, as our true self, when we choose it, when we have this intention, everything starts changing. And The difference between meta-spirituality and other spiritual traditions is that they don't tell you directly who you are, and they don't have this main goal to shift your identity, to shift your self-perception in this bold and direct way. They use different spiritual tools and practices like meditation, visualization, fasting, whatever it is, that can give you some glimpses of this understanding of who you truly are. But there's no direct path. So the main difference is that meta-spirituality is a direct path for those who are tired, honestly, from constant spiritual practices and visualizations, meditations, and everything. They had enough of that. They played enough of this game, and they want a direct relationship with the Creator that is who they are.
Would you call this a form of spiritual rebirth?
Yes, absolutely. It is actually what it is, because when we realize who we truly are, when we realize that we are God, some new identity is born at that moment. Would you agree that when we realize something that radical and we accept it, not with just our mind, but with our whole being, with our heart, with our mind and heart joined together, when we accept the truth of who we are and we start perceiving ourselves as that and creating ourselves as that, we will never be the same person who was there yesterday. It's a different being that was just born, that didn't exist before this truth came.
And when you had this meta rebirth, this meta spirituality, what did it feel like?
Expansion and relief. Expansion and relief. These are two words. Relief from suddenly expanding into my true size, into who I am, like connecting with what I have always been but didn't know, didn't realize.
How does meta spirituality provide a unique perspective on common spiritual questions and answers?
So the first main difference is something we already just touched on. It is the idea that we don't actually need spiritual practices, because once your identity is different, shifted, you don't need them. The Creator doesn't need spiritual practices. It expresses who it is. So a person who knows himself as God stops using spiritual practices, or how I call it, spiritual intermediaries, and develops this direct access to what he is and creates directly without spiritual intermediaries like rituals, affirmations, prayers, visualizations, all of that. So this is the main change. This is the main difference. It's a unique approach, I would say, to spirituality, because if you look at any other spiritual tradition, the main emphasis of each spiritual tradition is on spiritual practices. Now, from this new identity, from this new separateness perception, you start seeing that the concepts that mainstream spirituality promotes, they also no longer needed. For example, a belief in separate souls or karma or past life. Meta spirituality doesn't support those concepts, because in the light of truth, these ideas heavily promoted in the West or in the East, everywhere, they start losing any meaning. Let me explain. For example, when you realize yourself as the Creator, when you contain within your perception everything there is and everyone there is, you also realize that you and everybody else have one soul, one self. Yes, we have different bodies, but we have just one soul, so to speak. So this idea that we all have separate souls on the so-called higher level, it's just not the truth. There's no separation on the higher level of existence. Separation exists only here in this visible material reality. And when you rise in your consciousness into this unity that you are, you see that there are no separate souls hanging out there and talking to each other and creating some soul contracts for us to live through and some plans and all of that. All separateness just dissolves when you realize who you truly are. So, and from the idea of in non-existence of souls, we also start realizing that karma and past life also, they're just concepts created by the separate ego mind in order to console itself or whatever other reasons.
So essentially, the teacher, the guru, the creator is within each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
No need to look outside.
You will, at the beginning of your path, most people will, but it's like a cane. I always give this example of a cane. We need it when we absolutely don't know how to walk. We need it to learn to walk. But at some point, this cane, which is all the spiritual intermediaries, we need to get rid of it in order to actually start learning to walk on our own. But humanity right now is just completely holding onto the cane and doesn't want to let it go.
My guest is Nina Verkoeyen. Her practice, her creation, meta-spirituality. Nina, please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and this wonderful body of work.
You can find more information on my website, meta-spirituality.org. And on the main page, you will find this registration form for a free masterclass called The Introduction to Meta-Spirituality. This masterclass will give you an idea whether you resonate with this teaching or not, and if you want to discover more.
And we'll be back with Nina after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human. And she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Nina Verkoeyen, we're talking about her practice, meta-spirituality. Nina, does meta-spirituality help individuals to connect with a sense of meaning and purpose in their lives?
Yes, absolutely. But probably not in a way that we would think about it. Meta-spirituality makes you realize that there is just one true purpose in life, to know who you are. This is a foundation. To know who we are and how to live this truth and express it through everything we do. Because according to meta-spirituality, there is no meaning apart from the meaning we, as the creator, consciously or not, assign to things, including life purpose. So your purpose doesn't lie somewhere under some bush that you need to find. No, you can't find your purpose. You can create it. Whatever purpose you choose will be the one. So it is all about your conscious choice of the creator. What do you choose to make your life purpose? And if your choice is pure, which means it doesn't have some impurities in its motivation. For example, you're not choosing to do something in this life because you fear, because you think this is more lucrative, because this is what your parents told you you should do, or any other reasons, then you can make anything your life purpose. And I think we have, as a collective, we have this idea that there's only one life purpose. We need to find it, and then this is the purpose till the end of our days. And I think this puts off a lot of pressure onto us. And this is why many people don't choose things they love in this life, or they don't choose what their life purpose is, because they're afraid to make a mistake. They're afraid that, oh my God, this is one huge life purpose I need to choose for a whole lifetime of mine. What if it's not the right one? And they prefer not to choose anything. They prefer to play the game, oh, I don't know what my life purpose is, because they're just afraid to make this decision, to make this choice, to take the responsibility. But when we realize that our life purpose, the main life purpose of every human being is actually to know who we are, and then to express it through any chosen medium, doesn't matter what it is. So the main purpose is to know who we are, and then the sub-purpose is how and through what you express it. And it could be whatever you choose to be.
Absolutely. And as someone who has entered the 7th decade of his life, I can share with our listeners that life has many, many purposes, especially as we age.
Yeah, beautiful.
What is the meta-self?
Interesting question. So meta-self is this new identity that is born within you when you realize who you are. It wasn't there before. It arises and is being born in you from the moment you realize who you are. This is the bridge. Meta-self is the bridge between your old self and what we perceive as God. And this is this junction of God and a human in a physical form. It is a human being who knows that he is God.
How do we embrace that?
Honestly, I would encourage everybody to watch this free masterclass. And if it does resonate with you, if you feel this inner readiness to explore meta-spiritual ideas deeper, then I would welcome you into the community where we work exactly on that, giving birth to your new identity of meta-self. Also, meta-self is this united self. It's just this one soul that we all share. So in the end, we all connect in this one point of meta-self, because when you give birth to this new identity of yours, it is no longer separate from others. So my meta self and your meta self are one. See what I mean?
Absolutely. How may we incorporate meta-spirituality into our daily practices, and how may it help us make informed decisions?
Yeah, another interesting question. I would say that it's not even about incorporating into our daily practices. It's about the first step, realizing who we are, and then expressing who we are, just being that in every moment of our life. Enlightenment, or realizing that you are God, happens every moment. It is not a static state that you reach once and it's there forever. Like, difficult to put it in words. On one hand, it is there forever once you realized your true self. But on the other hand, the Creator recreates himself every moment of being, every new second of our life. So expressing ourselves as the Creator, it means actually creating ourselves as the Creator every moment of our life. I wouldn't call it a practice. I would call it just being in constant remembrance of who we are and making this constant inner choice of not forgetting and of being who we are and expressing who we are.
A state of being.
Yes.
Absolutely. One of the great questions that many spiritual traditions address is the nature of suffering. How does meta-spirituality address the issue of suffering?
We are the Creator. It is our nature. And our mission is to create this reality. We cannot not create. But until we know who we truly are, and until our identity changes, we will be creating not consciously, not knowing who we are, hence creating conflict, struggle, and suffering. Our vision of ourselves and others will be distorted, will be in separation. And this distorted perception through the eyes of separation leads to us making unconscious choices that lead to suffering, creating suffering. So trying to get to know who we are and trying to progress spiritually, we will use the only means to grow known to us, which is suffering. Because haven't we bought the idea that life is a school and we grow through adversity and we become wise through life difficulties? Because having adopted this belief, we create more and more conditions for our growth and more tough life lessons and more suffering. So changing your identity is the only way out of this. You see what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
How may meta-spirituality foster greater empathy for our sisters and brothers?
Empathy. How can meta-spirituality be used to foster greater empathy? I'm going to say something that may sound not very spiritual, but hear me out. It can't foster greater empathy, nor is it needed. It is not empathy, but the truth of who you are that will save the world and help others. Because empathy is going down to the rabbit hole of illusion and to the level of struggle another one is feeling. And one day you are empathetic, the next day you are not. So it's a feeling. Feelings are coming and going. This is not something stable. It's a feeling, empathy. But if you have awareness of who you are and who others are and how this reality is being created, including suffering, then you will naturally make a choice to recreate the scenario that was causing suffering. And you will make this choice to heal it by making it whole and united with its true nature. And you will make a new choice where suffering is not needed. So I teach people not empathy, but the truth of who they are. And then you're not only naturally empathetic as a result, but you also don't buy into the illusion that created suffering in the first place. And from that higher ground, so to speak, from that place of power within you and your connection with the creator within, you can offer true help, not just nodding and consoling the other, which is beautiful and is necessarily, and we all need it, right? Don't get me wrong, but actually helping to resolve the created scenario. So you can perceive the situation without distortion. You can make a new choice. You can recreate it differently, and you can emanate that state of being not a victim, but the creator that has control over its life. So I would replace empathy with the ability to withstand the illusion even when others believe in it. So only from a place of detachment can you offer a solution that is not, basically you're not immersing yourself in the situation, into the emotions of those who are in the situation. And from that point, you can offer true empathy and true help.
So it's not predicated on sensing loss or deficiency within someone else, but
yes,
in essence, finding that creator within that person also and recognizing
right.
the oneness.
It is perceiving others in their perceiving others in their true state, perceiving and creating them in their true state, which excludes suffering and pulls people out of that scenario that they created. It's a bold statement to say like they created the suffering, because we are creating the suffering we see in the world. There's nobody else who is responsible for that. The outer world is our creation, is our extension, I would say extension, yes. So yes, when we are suffering, when we are struggling, unfortunately or fortunately, this is our creation. And we may have reasons for that creation, it doesn't matter. But you will not be able to help somebody truly if you buy into this illusion. And it doesn't mean you have to be cruel and unempathetic and you don't console others and you don't offer, your emotional support. This is not what I'm talking about. But I'm also saying about adding this next level of clarity and detachment in a positive, wholehearted way.
And to that point, how may meta-spirituality be used to inspire greater both personal and collective change?
When we become conscious creators, knowing who we are, only then we have this ability to change the world, truly. Only then can we make a new choice, a choice to not grow through adversity, to not create more suffering. This is a choice that can only be made when we know who we are. Otherwise, we will continue being this creator in oblivion, this unconscious creator who just flows through life without knowing who he is and just not actually consciously creating, but responding, reacting to life, to what's happening.
Nina, how may meta-spirituality inform our approach to health?
According to meta-spirituality, when we don't know who we are inside, when we feel this dissatisfaction, when we feel separate from the world, from others, from God within, we will create outer crisis in order to instigate inner progress. We will create all sorts of suffering, including physical, including health issues. We will use it as means to grow, to learn from. Like we will use it as a tough life lesson to extract wisdom from. But meta-spirituality teaches us that there is a different way that we don't have to grow just through adversity, which will make us create more and more conditions for that growth, which means it will make us create more health issues and all sorts of other problems. So there is a different way. This way is what meta spirituality promotes in order to stop unnecessary health issues and unnecessary suffering. The other aspect to it is that, again, when we are not in connection to who we truly are, and we go through life not very consciously, making decisions that are not very conscious, that will make us feel burned out and like we're taking on untrue goals and untrue, unpure motivations, all the things that will make us lose energy and make us feel wiped and burned out and tired. We lose a lot of energy when we do things that we don't love, when we do things and our motivation is not pure. All of that, which is just an unconscious living, creates a lot of issues in our body. We get tired, we get burned out, and we require some rest and regeneration. And is there any other way for us to rest, for modern human beings, than just create some sort of sickness or illness? This is our main thing that we use when we want to slow down, to stop, to kind of recuperate. So we use illness as means to get back to ourselves, to questioning what we truly want. Is this actually where I want to go? Is this actually what I want to pursue? So the goal of meta spirituality is to show a very different way of being, of growing, of extracting wisdom, not from health difficulties or other problems in life, but from the realization of who we truly are and our natural intrinsic desire to express that in our daily life.
And we'll be back with Nina after these words on the OMTimes radio network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
What is dedication?
I am the father of a 9-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little boy, and I find fatherhood both relentlessly challenging and relentlessly rewarding. My daughter is biological and my son is adopted. I love them both so much, from the morning when you wake up to putting them to bed at night, and every moment in between. It really is so special, and boy, is it exhausting. One thing that I fear about being a parent is the future for my children. I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings. But I'm also hopeful that the future holds a more inclusive and compassionate world for them.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
My guest is Nina Verkoeyen. We're talking about her practice, meta-spirituality. What is the connection between meta-spirituality and psychology?
Oh, that's a very, very beautiful question, very important to me personally, because I was a psychologist. Being a former psychologist myself, I love responding to this question, so thank you for this. First, psychology aims to reprogram the mind, rewrite it, while meta-spirituality doesn't bother with the mind, knowing that our mind can't be reprogrammed. It will forever operate in separation because the mind's only purpose is to sustain the illusion that we are separate from the world, from each other, from the Creator. Meta-spirituality leaves the mind alone. It bypasses it. It transcends it. It elevates above it by creating another center of command, so to speak, another operational system that is not the mind. This is meta-self that we talked about. Mind lives and functions. It's still there. It's doing its job. But there is something else, some other self that we function through, this new identity of our true meta-self, true self of the Creator. And second thing is that psychology likes working with the past, while meta-spirituality is anchored only in the present moment, and it doesn't see any value in revisiting the past, that only recreates the past in the present. There are more efficient and less painful way of becoming free from the mind programming. Being a psychologist myself and worked as a psychologist for a few years, I realized that psychology is not enough. We will still feel incomplete if we didn't connect with our true nature.
Many who follow a spiritual path are searching for something that's called enlightenment. Is meta-spirituality a path to enlightenment?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Enlightenment is simply the knowledge of who we are I think there's a lot of, again, misconceptions about enlightenment and around this whole concept of enlightenment. Many people perceive it as some state of being that is very difficult to achieve, that is almost unattainable, that requires decades of spiritual practice or years of fasting and all sorts of other spiritual activities. But in truth, what I realized during my awakening, what got revealed to me, is that enlightenment is simply this knowledge of who we are in truth. And enlightenment can come from any medium or through any medium. It doesn't have to be necessarily this crazy inner firework. It can be through different means. Humanity needs to understand that enlightenment is our birthright. It is not something that we need to somehow deserve and spend years in meditation and do some sacrifices. No, enlightenment is the birthright of ours, and this is simply the knowledge of who we are. And then our job is to express this knowledge in our daily life in order to see radical, positive changes in our visible reality.
Are there any potential criticisms or misconceptions about meta-spirituality that you've personally encountered?
Yes, a few. When we are not ready to let go of this game of suffering, of learning, of being a student of life rather than being the creator of life, then, of course, when we meet the truth, we will feel this inner resistance. When the truth came to me, I was a yoga and meditation teacher, an awareness teacher, who was teaching about past lives and karma and reincarnation and all of these things for more than a decade at that point. And it was difficult for me to accept the truth. So there was this initial resistance of my mind, but I couldn't neglect the truth. It was so evident, so pure, so strong. It just took me a few seconds basically to accept it. But for many people, it will not be something that they immediately can accept. And also, I like very much the saying of Schopenhauer that all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as being self-evident. So the same thing with meta-spirituality. I think that this teaching is not for everybody. It's not for those who just got onto the spiritual path. I think it's for those who have been on the spiritual path for a while and still can find this feeling of completeness. They tried everything. They tried different practices, different rituals, different techniques. They meditated. They did everything, but they still feel unsatisfied and they still don't see positive life changes in their visible reality. So for those, I would say, maybe advanced seekers, for lack of a better word, advanced seekers, meta-spirituality is a gift. It is something that they were looking for a long time, but it's not for everyone. Eventually, it will be something that every human being comes to realize, but every human being will realize the truth in their own timing.
What advice would you share for someone who is new to meta-spirituality and looking to incorporate it into their life?
I would advise to listen to the free masterclass, the Introduction to Meta-Spirituality, and see if that resonates with you. If you truly feel that you're ready for this, if your mind is not resisting too much, if you feel there's a chance for you, if there's curiosity, if there's this inner intuition that this is something worth exploring, then I would recommend join the membership, join our Meta Spirituality community, which has a lot of members, and start learning how to express this knowledge of who you are in your daily life.
My guest is Nina Verkoeyen. Her practice, Meta Spirituality. Nina, please tell our listeners one more time where they can find out more about you and this amazing work.
Yes, this is at, my website is meta-spirituality.org. And on the main page of this website, you can find my free Introduction to Meta Spirituality Masterclass that I recommend everybody watches and sees if it's resonating.
Nina, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience, your wisdom, and your wonderful work.
Thank you so much, Victor. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.